The work around awkwardness is not about eliminating it. So in fact, we don't ever get over it. We're going to experience it as adults for the rest of our lives. There's no such thing as a factually awkward person. It is an emotion. It is subjective. You are feeling awkward about trying something new right now, and it's universal. The most confident people you know have not figured out how to eliminate it. They just recover faster.
Awkwardness is not a flaw. It's not something we're fixing. It's something we're embracing on our path to becoming brave and courageous and doing the things we want in life. Welcome to In Confidence, where what we share in confidence helps us grow in confidence. I'm very excited because my guest today is Henna Pryor, who is a dynamic workplace performance expert. She speaks and writes about performance mindset, high impact communications, and embracing the bumps in a world that keeps trying to optimize for smoothness. Henna is a 2-time TEDx speaker, a regular columnist for Inc. magazine, and the founder of Priority Group, a growth firm helping people strengthen their mental and social muscles so they can be braver at work. She's worked with incredible companies, Google, J&J, JP Morgan Chase, and her best-selling book, Good Awkward, was named a Kirkus Review's Best Book of the Year. What I love most about Henna is that she doesn't teach us to chase perfect polish. In fact, she shows us how to embrace the awkward because that's where the real growth happens. Let's listen in. Henna, thank you so much for coming on In Confidence.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
We've known each other for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to know each other in a dressing room.
Back at a staffing world years ago. You were selling some stuff, and I was like, who's this woman, and why is her stuff so cool? So yeah, that was 4 or 5 years ago at this point?
I think it was it one of our first post-pandemic, like back in the swing of things?
Yeah, 2022 maybe, 2023, something like that.
Well, thank you for supporting us.
I love it.
Well, we always start every episode with a question, which is, in the last 12 months, what are you proudest of in your life, personally or professionally?
In the last 12 months, I would say the continued ripple effect of Good Awkward. You know, the book came out 2 years ago at this point, and the fact that people are still using it as language to help embrace all the uncertainty and the courage and, you know, kind of using it in business vernacular now in a way that it hadn't been used. But I would say more than that, the personal one, which is the way my kids have embraced awkward moments as a result of the work and leaned into them. That as a mom is really the most rewarding part.
Okay, well, we're gonna dive into the book a little bit more, but I love it when there can be a personal and a professional ripple effect from the same thing, which is your book, best-selling book. Yes,
I think for them especially, you know, they've grown up with everything feeling really on display. It's that generation. And so for them to feel more empowered, I think that gift for me feels even bigger than anything professional.
Oh, that's huge. And for those of our audience who don't know you, can you share a little bit about how you make a difference in the world?
Oh, yes. So I try very hard to make a difference through, you know, being a keynote speaker. I am a writer. I have an Inc. column as well. But I'd say my focus as a speaker and writer is around helping boost skills in mental and social fitness, specifically in the workplace. So mindset skills, you know, kind of fresh, modern, evidence-based approaches to using mental skills in a fun, jargon-free way. And then maybe more so our social skills. I think that our social skills are atrophying. Even extroverts, people who don't identify as shy, are noticing that we just don't have to do certain things as much anymore. We live in swipe culture. We live in hybrid culture. And so there's a change that's happening in our social frameworks. And so helping people feel more confident and empowered in those moments is sort of my life's work and obsession.
I hadn't even thought about how our social skill muscle is atrophying. What's a good example of something you might teach or share on stage?
Yeah, so I think, you know, things that used to feel rudimentary and mundane are now starting to feel really challenging for people. So let's just take it real table stakes. If you are someone who is accustomed to, you know, swiping for a date and using Instacart to order your groceries or door dashing your food, you could conceivably go through an entire day without talking to someone. Right? You don't have to talk to people at the same frequency. Even in our hybrid remote work structures, you DM the person, you do a quick asynchronous exchange. And so when it comes to work, all of a sudden someone needs to have a challenging conversation with a colleague. They need to say, hey, something went sideways on that project. The lift of that conversation, because they haven't had any smaller lifts all day, feels extra big. So, you know, metaphorically, like going to the gym. You don't pick up a weight for years. All of a sudden, you're picking up a 300-pound barbell. And you're like, ow, I don't want to. Same thing, right? Same thing. And so measurably now our social skills have taken a hit, even those of us who haven't historically struggled with it in the past.
So how do you break out of that?
Yeah, it's practice. It's practice. So there are some mindset shifts we can make, right? Which is normalizing that this is everyone's experience, not just an introvert or shy person's experience. And then making it a priority to practice because the system, the world is no longer optimized for these interactions, these little messy friction moments. We actually have to create them. We have to go out of our way to say, you know what? I'm going to call the restaurant and order my dinner. I'm going to speak to the grocer in line and just make up a little conversation. I'm going to have that micro disagreement with my colleague so I have at least the experience of it before I need to have the big, meaty conversation. We actually need to be far more intentional about these things and manufacture these moments in our life with some deliberate practice.
One of the things my boyfriend is really proud of is for the last 7 years, he's had a conversation with a stranger every single day.
I love that.
And he has rules around it. He's like, it has to be 5 minutes long. I have to get the person's first name. And I asked him on one of our early dates, I'm like, how did you do this during the pandemic? He said, I would call Verizon customer service and just talk to somebody for a few minutes. As you know, we both have the same breed of dog. And with my puppy, he's now got a whole community of people who walk their dogs at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I have a stranger conversation every single day just with our dog. I don't even have to go to a bar or like have or call customer service.
Yeah.
But when I met him, I thought, wow, what an interesting way to practice speaking to strangers every day.
And most people would hear that and go, I could never. Right? I could never. And the reason I could never is not even just their own hesitation or social atrophy. It's also they don't want that, right? I don't want to bother them. But there are study after study after study. There was a big famous one done by Nicholas Epley out of University of Chicago. And he did a study on trains in Chicago where he essentially asked people to forecast how people would feel if they struck up a conversation with them on the plane. So they did their own internal forecasting. How do you think you'll feel about it? How do you think it will be received? As you can expect, people are like, well, I don't like that idea. It's better to have that quiet time, the solitude. People aren't going to like that. And time and time again, this study they replicated across trains, across coffee shops. Not only did the people enjoy being talked to the majority of the time, the people doing the talking, the initiation felt better. Even the shy people, even the introverts reported higher level of positive emotion afterwards. So we really don't estimate this very well, the way it's going to land and the way it's going to feel.
What is the mindset shift that you teach people to get over that hurdle of, I don't want that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we get stuck in this framing of people don't like to be bothered. So if anybody uses the word, I don't want to bother, I really encourage them to wipe that. We are communal beings. Humans are meant to be in conversation with one another. And again, not every attempt is going to be a win. Not every attempt is going to be a win, but I want you to try to actually seek the evidence of whether people like this or not before you assign a story on their behalf. So try it 10 times and then do a count. Statistically, how many times did you get brutally rebuffed, right? Maybe once. Most often, people are actually really craving connection. They're craving being seen. It doesn't have to be deep stuff. It can be hey, Lisa, I love your jacket. I haven't seen you in a while. We will learn very quickly we have the same breed of dog. It doesn't require much, but most people are missing this and are really delighted that somebody else took that first step to create that moment of interaction.
I love this idea of we make up a story in our head and we set ourselves up for disappointment or we have an expectation around an outcome. And if we abandon that and we say there are many ways this could go, I'm not a plain talker, so that study would be me. However, one thing I do tell people if I'm sitting next to someone, I'll say, I'm not a plane talker. I am a takeoff and landing talker. And so if you do want to talk during takeoff or landing, those are the two moments where for those 15 minutes, I'm all in. And the person always laughs and go, what do you do for a living? Where are you from? Are you going or coming? And I've made really good friends, actually. People I've exchanged emails with, and we're LinkedIn friends now.
But I love that you're playful about it, right? It's not a high stakes thing. It's like hey, I'm not a plane talker. And to be honest, planes are kind of hard to hear, right? I think even more than a train. But I love that you're setting the parameters of, hey, I'd like to be in connection, but here's the way I'm comfortable doing it. That's fine. There's no one way to do it. But I think, one of my best friends, Colin, always says, it's the start that stops most people. It's not the effort itself. It's not the conversation itself that scares people. It's the starting the conversation. It's the how is this going to be received? And that has to do with that story that we tend to tell ourselves.
Well, this is a perfect segue into your book because it is all about helping people get over feeling awkward.
Yeah.
Which I love. I think we are always holding ourselves back because we're worried about being embarrassed or awkward or how we're seen. And one of the things that we pulled out from your work, which I loved, can you tell the story about being called Helen on the first day of your new job and how awkward it is to correct people? Because I recently did this, by the way, to our neighbors.
Sure.
And I really got this woman's name wrong for the last 4 months.
Yeah.
And she was like, I felt awkward correcting you. And I was like, you should have.
Right.
I would have been fine. Can you start with that story? Because I love it.
Yeah. So, my first job out of college, I was at a Big Four public accounting firm, and the partner on my project very early on said, hey, Helen, can you go grab the work papers? My name is Henna, Henna. And it was, hey, Helen. And at the moment, I didn't say anything. And so I said, kind of thought to myself, right, the next time he calls me that, I'll make sure I correct him because that's not my name. So the next time happened and I didn't correct him. And then the next time happened and I didn't correct him. And by that point, I'm like, I can't correct him. I can't because he's going to think, what an idiot. Why didn't she correct me the first time I said Helen? And it felt so far gone. And then finally, one day I said, hey, hey, Dave, just a heads up. It's Henna. I felt extremely awkward about it, right? I felt like my whole identity was at stake. He's going to think, why didn't she speak up sooner? What on earth? He immediately was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I've been calling you that for a few weeks now, and I should have caught that. Thank you for saying something. Not only was he not feeling awkward about it, not only was it not nearly as painful as I made it out to be in my mind, we actually kind of bonded over it. So for the weeks to follow, he would kind of jokingly say like, Henna did a great job. Helen, on the other hand, it became this bonding moment. So this thing that I was agonizing over, this awkward conversation I had to have, became actually one of the very best things for our relationship. And all it meant was I had to lean into it and not run away from it.
Wow. And that birthed a whole body of work for you, right? That moment.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how that led to your book and some of the main themes of it?
Yeah, that moment, amongst other things, firstborn kid of immigrant parents, I felt very awkward my whole life. Again, my name is Henna. I grew up in the 80s where Hanna-Barbera was a thing. And so I just wanted to be Jennifer or Samantha or Jessica with a lunch that didn't smell so aromatic and, all the things that I think firstborn immigrant kids can resonate with.
For sure. Outsider looking on the inside, like trying to break onto the inside.
Just smooth my bumpy edges, please. And, that obviously only works sometimes. And then I remember professionally, I started to feel like, okay, in college, I found a bit of confidence. I found a bit of my sense of self. But then professionally, Brene Brown would start to say, stay awkward, brave, and kind. And I remember, Queen Brene, I love her work. And I remember she would say that. And I'd think, brave and kind, yes. Awkward? Does she know how difficult this emotion is?
There's so much risk
There's
involved.
so much risk. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much exposure. There's so much mixing up, aptitude and confidence and competence in it. And so I realized no one had done a deep dive. And so once I started to do the deep dive, tons of data emerged that was really interesting and fresh to the way it holds us back sometimes at work.
Can you go a little bit more into that?
Yes. So I think some of my favorite research that felt underexplored in the conversation, the one was around the emotion of vicarious embarrassment, which I thought was a really fun one. So empathy is a good thing. Let me start with that. We need more empathy in the world. I think we're short on it. And there's a specific type of empathy when it's too high. It's called easily empathetically embarrassed, meaning when someone else has a misstep, a flub, a blunder, and you take on their embarrassment as though it's your own. Ooh. So you've kind of probably experienced this. Everybody has it to some degree, but it can be very high in some people. Someone else mispronounces a name in a meeting, and you want to hide underneath the table because you're like, oh my gosh. That person may not even realize that they did something. And yet you are carrying all this embarrassment. And what we've learned in the research is that when you have that level of empathy, if you're super easily empathetically embarrassed, it can actually make it really hard for you to take chances, for you to take risks, because you constantly think, everyone feels all of that with me. So there's just some interesting explorations in the work about the things that get in our way that, can be good qualities, but in excess cannot serve us and our growth.
So how do I overcome this? If I find that I have this characteristic of really overthinking things, over empathizing, or almost the way I love that you're talking about is I create a story in my head that I'm going to be embarrassed, so I just don't take a risk. How do you overcome that?
Yeah, so a couple things. First things first is fact checking your conditioning a little bit. So, I grew up, I'm South Asian. I grew up in a household where log kya kenge, or that was the what will people think is essentially what it translates to. It was a very strong, we grew up in what will the community think? What will other people think? That was years of conditioning. So I think step one before we get into action is, what are the stories that you've been told growing up about people are watching you, people are staring, and then fact checking that against what is, again, scientifically the truth, which is the illusion of transparency. Often people are, even if you have a misstep, they might see you, but they're not watching you, and they're watching the blood color in your face at the intensity that we think they are. The spotlight effect, people aren't still watching you with that full level of, centeredness that we think they are. So just checking those stories that you were told as a kid against some of the truths. And then after that is just having techniques in the moment. The work around awkwardness is not about eliminating it. So in fact, we don't ever get over it. We're going to experience it as adults for the rest of our lives. It exists in uncertainty. It's starting to work on our comeback rate. How do we start to work on that not hooking us for minutes, for days, in the shower, for weeks? How do we start to work on techniques like, naming it, neutralizing it, humor? We can get into some of the specifics, but comeback rate is what we're trying to work on, not removing it.
Oh, I love comeback rate.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take us back in time to first year of your job.
Yep.
And Helen/Henna. What are the specific tactics you would have gone back in time to give Helen/Henna?
So I would have said, hey, Dave, I got to tell you something, and it feels a little awkward, So just take the power right out of that, right? And then probably like a little bit of humor, like, while I love the name Helen, and I think it's a great name, my name is actually Henna, and you seem like the type of person that would want to know that.
Ooh,
I think, what's happening there is you're naming the emotion and kind of just lifting some of the seriousness, the gravity from it, using a little bit of humor, but then saying the thing directly with care. So the with care part is you seem like the type of person that cares about things like that. And so there's sort of like a giving hard stuff with that compassion wrapped in it.
I love that you name it. You just took me back to this moment. I'd been at McKinsey for 10 years, and I was launching a new project with a luxury retailer. And I was meeting the CEO for the first time. And I'm Asian, so I look probably 10 years younger than I really am. And the CEO thought I was the assistant on the team and asked me for a cup of coffee. And I remember saying, insert name, oh, that's so sweet. These are Asian genetics.
I love it.
I know I look like a 22-year-old. I'm actually been at McKinsey 10 years. I'm your lead partner.
Right.
And I said, thank you for the compliment, though. My mother looks great.
I love it.
And he laughed awkwardly on his part. And he said, oh my goodness, Lisa, I had no idea. We're going to do great things together. And I thought to myself, I'm glad I nipped it in the bud in that kickoff meeting, because first of all, he'll never underestimate another Asian woman. I think for him, no one had ever called him out. He was
a lesson.
An icon in the luxury industry. And secondly, I reclaimed some of my power. And I think I got to a point in my career where nothing embarrassed me. I'm like, I love your comeback rate. So I'm like, everything is solvable.
Everything is solvable.
Like you can come back from anything. I love comeback rate.
And everything is a trade. And so like in that moment, not to psychoanalyze that, what happened in that moment, because you probably didn't think about it that deeply, but there were two things that you were holding. It was, I either allow this and kind of, hold the awkwardness in my own body, even if he doesn't feel it, I'm going to feel it, that this is not who I am, or this is important to me to represent who I am in this moment. So in that Helen/Henna moment, I, for a moment, allowed the discomfort of that moment to mean more to me than claiming my identity, claiming the name that my parents gave me. And so a lot of times when we're deciding, do I make this awkward conversation happen, I want us to just take a second and recognize that we're choosing what is most important in that moment. And sometimes when we bring that choice to the forefront of our thinking, it helps to make it a little easier to find that gumption to say, okay, if I'm choosing that versus that, I have to choose that. But I don't think a lot of us stop long enough in the moment to realize which two things were compelling.
So we're going to name it.
Yeah.
We're then going to go ahead and essentially claim it, right? So put it out there. What if the response on the other side isn't positive?
So oftentimes with this emotion, we can catastrophize, right? Because awkwardness exists in uncertainty. We don't know how the other person's going to react. We don't know how they are going to take it as far as feedback or as far as the conversation. Now, my general focus with people is we can't control other people. Of course, we can only control what we want to do. And once it's delivered, just have peace in that. Most of the time, though, I find that worry is unwarranted. If we wrap it in care or if we wrap it in lightness, it is generally received in a way that keeps the conversation going forward. So, towards the end of the book, I talk a lot about improv mentality. This is a yes and. We are not stopping the conversation. This is so awkward that we're all just going to like sit here with our shoulders down and, that's not the goal. The goal of actually embracing the awkward moments is keeping it going with a touch of lightness and with a touch of compassion, because awkwardness is universal.
Okay.
No one gets to avoid it. And so we just try to roll with it a little bit.
Oh, I love it. Name it, claim it, use some humor, and then yes and.
Yes.
It's an ongoing conversation.
Ongoing, and just, I've been there. Like if somebody else has an awkward moment, just reminding them I've had these moments, right? Because it helps take the sting out of what feels very, oh my gosh, the spotlight is on me. It has rarely been the case that somebody else hasn't had a similar enough experience. Okay. So that compassion goes a long way.
And I think that once you start to practice it, naming it becomes easy.
It's so much easier with practice. It's very hard when you've never said it, but you'll notice after the first few times it gets easier.
Okay. You've also said at some point, by the way, you're the guide that was prepared for your interview is chock full of amazing sound bites. So I love repeating you back to you.
Sure.
If your self-improvement and self-identity are more important to you than someone's approval of you, then it's time to jump. Whew. What does that mean? That's so deep.
Yeah, back to the example of my name, it really helps in order to be friends with awkwardness to know what you stand for, right? What matters to you. So if you are thinking you want to speak up in a meeting and are finding the words, catching in your throat because it could be received a certain way, in those moments, you have to know what's on the other side of that. So I refer to it as the cringe chasm, right? You're gonna have that feeling in your belly. It's not gonna feel great. That's expected and normal. But do you have a clear sight on what's on the other side? I don't recommend that people jump recklessly. I don't think you should just, sometimes we've met those people that just say things and they create awkwardness and we're like, what was that for? Like, why? That didn't feel necessary. It didn't feel helpful or additive in any way. Like, I don't want people to be that. But what I do want them to feel empowered to do is knowing what's on the other side, knowing that it matters enough to say, all right, I've got this pit in my stomach. I know this has the potential to be uncomfortable, but that thing on the other side is worth it, right? This self-improvement that I'm chasing, this identity that I want is worth me having that feeling in my stomach and jumping anyway. That's what it means to cross that chasm.
I love cringe chasm. That is amazing.
Lots of those moments in my life.
Yes.
Lots.
And would you say there's different levels of awkwardness? Like, is there, do you, when you name it, is there one that's like, from a standpoint of what's on the other side, this is low risk?
Sure.
Like, do it because there's nothing to lose on the other side, versus, hey, there's something a lot to lose on the other side.
Sure.
Do you modulate?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question sort of in a different way. It's that there's awkwardness, and then obviously that exists on a spectrum, but then there's things on the other side of it. So when things get very, very awkward and emotions become involved, that's when we start to move into vulnerability. So people often ask, what's the difference between awkwardness and vulnerability? Well, they share a few traits. So they both involve uncertainty. They both involve kind of like a public social discomfort. But the bigger difference between them is that vulnerability is higher on the level of emotional exposure. So you're sharing a little bit more about how this makes you feel or the feelings involved, versus an awkward moment may not be as full of that part of the conversation, but it's just a little more like clunky, blunder. But we have to start with awkwardness because people, I've seen leaders, I know you work with leaders all the time, they've heard vulnerability is sexy. So they're like, oh, this is really hard for me right now. And you're like, is it? Is it actually? Like, I don't feel like it is. That faux vulnerability, it's out of reach for some people. They have to actually first practice being okay just saying, hey, I need to say this to you, team, and I'm worried it's going to come out clunky. That is embracing an awkwardness, but it's not full over into vulnerability. It's not full over into emotional disclosure. But if you can't get comfortable over there first, that part, that kind of chasm is going to be a lot harder to access. So start low, start small, and then
there's a whole body of work we're working on right now around trust. And one of the things that I've been thinking through is, and I love that there's awkwardness and there's vulnerability, is as you scale higher and higher to that emotional level of depth, it requires a greater level of trust with the person on the other side. And what I love is when you're awkward up front on those smaller moments, you actually build that trust so you can get to vulnerability, right? There's an openness and an acceptance to, hey, this is clunky. Can we just go there together? Someone goes, oh, okay. She trusts me enough to do that.
Yeah.
So when you have the tougher moments, you're already building a level and a foundation of trust.
I love that. It's that, we talk a lot about psychological safety, but it's also psychological permission. Like as a leader, how are you displaying psychological permission? And I have a fun little metaphor. My son and I were sitting on the porch and we heard the birds singing. It was just a beautiful day. The birds were singing. And I said to my son, why do the birds sing? Do you know? And he's like, I don't know. We should Google it, Mom. So we Googled it. And it turns out that birds sing only when there are no predators around.
Oh.
I didn't know this, did you?
So they feel safe enough to sing?
Yeah. So the reason humans over millennia have associated the sound of birdsong with calm and peace is because birds only sing when they don't see predators around. They feel safe to sing. And so over the years, this is such a perfect metaphor for trust and leadership. So if you aren't loudly singing, this might come out clunky. Team, I made a mistake. I should have said that differently. If you are not singing loudly and regularly, then psychological safety it's just an expression. It doesn't mean anything. So that little bird song, awkward moments, trust moments, those are it.
That's so good. We had a bird singing on our ledge yesterday at the office. My dog went crazy. And now I'm just going to remind her that this is safe.
It's
but
safe.
You are the predator.
Yes.
You are going to
exactly. You're the predator in this
You're
moment.
the predator.
Yeah.
You've also said before, instead of improving, instead of leveling up, instead of playing to win, we play not to lose. What does that mean?
The further along we get in our career, we have more to protect. So often when it comes to this work of embracing an awkward moment, of admitting a misstep, of dealing with a blunder, it often feels easier for early career people than it does for leaders or folks who are further along, because to them it feels like early career, there's an expectation that they're learning.
That you'll fumble.
There's an expectation that they don't quite know yet. And even though this is not true, as people get further into their career, they start to tell themselves a story of, well, I have a reputation to protect. I should know these things by now. I should have the right phrase, the right language, the ability to deliver this in a certain way. I should. We should all over ourselves. And the truth is, we start to act in a way that goes into preserving what we have instead of working towards what we want. And so that's what that phrase implies, is instead of playing to win, whatever our future version of success looks like, we're protecting what we think we might lose. So this feeling of protection holds us back a little bit.
Can you share a moment where you've had to choose kind of improvement, crossing that cringe chasm over protection or approval? Can you share a moment for you recently?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I mean, I think as a speaker, I know, you know this as well as I do, we're always trying to refine and improve our content. And sometimes that involves taking a chance with something that you've never done on stage before, not fully knowing how it's going to land. And so I can give you sort of both scenarios. Once I tried something and it was a smashing success, and I was like, fantastic, I'm going to use that in the future. Then not that long ago, I tried something and it was pretty flat. It did not land, but it was also at my edge. I was really trying to lean into a style of humor that I hadn't done on stage before. And, I'll be honest, it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. I could feel myself on stage. I don't think anyone can tell, but I could feel myself going a bit red, like, ugh, that was kind of a womp womp, right? I did not go the way I wanted. But I didn't get the audience reaction I wanted. So in the moment, my face got a little hot. I was like, okay, this is where it all goes south, right? It felt a little flat. So I had, told myself a bit of a story in the moment, but I kept going. I'm a professional. But I remember afterwards thinking, I tried something. I tried something that was at my edge, something that I'm working on improving, these sort of like different humor muscles. And while I didn't necessarily get the response that I wanted, it was for me a huge win because I put myself out there. I didn't play safe and small. So net, it took a little bit of that intentionality for me to not look at this awkward moment as like, I'm never going to do that again. I could have sat there and focused on, Matthew Adamson calls them contamination stories. Like, oh, that was a fail. Never do that again. But I had to go find the redemption story, which was, hey, this was pretty great that you did the thing and you tried it. So keep trying. Try it again. Play with it. And I did try it again. It's actually gotten better and better every time I've done it.
And that's what you call the comeback rate.
Yes.
Which I love.
Yes.
I did a few years ago an event for fifth-year lawyers on their way to partner. And I used to do this audience exercise where I would have people stand up and share their responses. just to be clear, fifth-year lawyers don't want to participate.
No.
And it was a want moment.
Yes,
And I remember calling my agent being like, I bombed. I never bomb. And I totally bombed. And we talked it through. And he said, well, what's a solve? And we ended up coming up with pair share exercises. So I no longer call on people in the audience because it is awkward.
Yeah.
And it's always that one person who's willing to raise their hand. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I just forced you all to speak in front of 1,000 people.
Sure.
So now I do pair share. And it was that the comeback for me was, you got to redesign the exercise.
The yes and, right? Like, how do I adapt this? Can I actually you brought to mind a recent one where, when we think about the awkwardness emotion, it's about other people, social discomfort. We don't feel it by ourselves. We feel it in front of other people. I had one where it was a similar, PharmDs, MDs, very technical audience. And the jokes just felt like they weren't landing. And somebody came up to me afterwards and he goes, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was so funny. I mean, you are so funny. But the mouth was flat. And I'm thinking, where's the face that matches? Is this what they call incongruence of communication? But he's like, oh, everyone thought it was so funny. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting here berating myself over how none of this landed. This just, for whatever reasons that I'll never know. Maybe they didn't feel psychologically safe to laugh boisterously. Maybe this group is just a little more subdued and their laughter is internal. But I'm telling myself an entire story about what this represents. And the reality is it's not that story at all.
Yeah. I've had many moments with different groups where they haven't laughed where they're supposed to laugh. And I'm like, you just keep going. I know you think I'm funny.
Right.
There's nothing that
I know I'm
embarrasses
funny.
me. I know I'm funny. And what holds people back from doing this though? Like what, if you weren't you.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready for this keynote and I want to try, what holds someone back from trying that thing?
I think for high performers specifically, the fear of uncertainty is often higher than the fear of failure. So I'm not super afraid of failing. Like, I don't like it. None of us like it, okay?
Yeah.
But I recognize it and have grown to appreciate it as on the path to success, that you have to try stuff, you're gonna fall on your face. But that fear of uncertainty of, I kind of want to know, is this going to be a success or a failure? I wish I knew how this was going to land. Sometimes that fear of uncertainty actually gets us more than, I know this is probably going to fail, or I know this is, has a chance. That sometimes really holds us. And I think the higher we go in our visibility, in our leadership, the harder it becomes to step into something like that when so many people are watching.
Yeah.
And as speakers, people are watching. As leaders, people are watching.
Maybe it helps that we are immigrant kids, because I feel like I grew up with a lot of uncertainty.
It helps.
And what I love about where you're going with all of this, and everyone should get a copy of this book. I mean, I love my copy, and is awkwardness is not a flaw. It's not something we're fixing. It's something we're embracing on our path to becoming brave and courageous and doing the things we want in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's universal. The most confident people have not figured out how to eliminate it. They just recover faster.
Hi, I just want to remind everyone around a little special feature on season 3. We're calling it a little bit of a bonus to celebrate our training plan for confidence. We want everyone to take on the last quarter challenge. So each week on Tuesday, when the episode drops, I will be posting on my LinkedIn, Lisa L. Sun. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll be posting the challenge. And if you like that post and you comment on how you've embraced that challenge, how it's made a difference for you, you'll be entered to win a gift that week. So we'll be picking a winner each week. And then if you complete all 10 challenges by the end of the season, if someone actually goes on and likes and posts on all 10, you'll be entered to win a grand giveaway in December. I hope you'll join me in embracing the last quarter challenge. Follow me on LinkedIn and join in on the fun. Well, and this is a perfect segue, because as you know, this season we're doing a challenge every week. Yeah. And a lot of your work is about these little challenges, right? They're sort of like micro moments that ladder up to getting over awkwardness or living with it. Yeah. You never get over it. And you were the perfect person to invite for this week's challenge.
Love it.
This week's challenge is try something new. And it requires us to put ourselves out there. And I think when you have to try something new, it could be like a new workout class. It could be a new part of a keynote. It could be anything. You have to get over shame, embarrassment, awkwardness, and let go of expectation. My own quote, by the way, is everything in life is a good time and or a good story. The best ones are both.
I love it.
What advice do you have for someone who is going to try something new this week?
Okay, well, first, since you shared your great quote, I'm going to share one of mine that I often say, which is, experts today fail because they're experts in a world that no longer exists.
Whew. Okay.
The world is changing so freaking fast. So you can be an expert in something today and, be running laps around, being lapped around by a teenager tomorrow, right? Who's better at the AI or is better at the thing. Like we have to get back to that beginner mentality. And so this challenge is perfect. Adaptability is the new superpower. So the tips I would give is, first of all, give yourself some pre-talk. Don't just walk into that experience, without having given it a moment's thought. I want you to give yourself some distance self-talk ahead. Henna, you're doing something new. Henna, it's going to feel awkward, but you're going to lean in. Henna, you've got this. Henna, you're just trying it for the reasons that you gave yourself of doing something that feels uncomfortable, not because you're going to be good at it, right? So give yourself the pre-talk and then give yourself the gift of a quick post-mortem. So if that experience felt difficult, hard, wonderful, whatever it is, give yourself the gift of like a 30-second debrief. Okay, what felt good about that? Where did I feel like people were watching me intensely, even though the reality is they probably weren't? What would I do differently next time? Most of us that are high performers, we speed through these things and we don't give ourselves the gift of the pre and post. Just 30 seconds on either side.
Yeah.
Do that and you will find a big difference.
And I love beginner's mindset.
Yeah.
Like we all need a beginner's mindset because the world is changing so fast. And the pre-talk, the part of your pre-talk that I especially like is you're not going to be good at this right away.
Yeah.
Because it lowers your expectations, right? Happiness is reality minus expectation. You're sort
Yes.
of like, the expectation's low. I am going to suck at this.
Yeah.
I think that's why everyone loves Dancing with the Stars.
Yes.
We're all
Yes.
obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Because these are celebrities who are great in the field that they're in. They're already at the top of their game somewhere.
Yes.
And now we are going to make them do something that they are really bad at. And it's
Right.
completely awkward, right? Those first few weeks.
Yes.
You see them stumble and
Yes.
stumble. And that's, I think, the thing that's very human about it.
Yeah, we put people on pedestals and we don't realize it. My friend Kelly Thompson just released a great TEDx on this, is we see people who we believe are confident, right? Just as so closely tied with your work. We see the confidence and we think it's something, not realizing there are steps like you outline or practice or years of things we can do. And I think when we put people on that pedestal, we forget that everyone trips over their own 2 feet when they've never done a waltz before. Everyone stumbles over their words when they've never said this thing before. We all do it. It's the comeback rate. We look at the comeback rate people and we go, ooh, they're so confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always like 1 week where you're like, they had their moment,
Yes,
right? You're like,
right.
But I saw them screw up for the first 5 weeks.
Did they nail it or did they also flub and just move through it really quickly?
Yeah.
Maybe either one.
And you're normalizing it.
Yes.
Which I love because I think when we can normalize awkwardness, then the comeback rate, you get a chance to go for it.
It's just much more sustainable for, everybody who's human.
Okay, so everyone that is a listener is going to go try something new this week. What is the one thing you want in their head as they're going into it?
Okay, if I can give them one reframe going into this, is if anyone identifies as an awkward person, I want you to stop that. There's no such thing as a factually awkward person. It is an emotion. It is subjective. So instead, I want you to change your mental language to, I'm feeling awkward about this right now.
Oh, I love that.
It's not a trait. It's not who you are. Literally in the dictionary, no such thing as a factually awkward person. You are feeling awkward about trying something new right now. And when you're done, guess what? That feeling will probably pass. It's transient. So please eliminate, I am this type of person. You are feeling this emotion right now.
Okay, well, we can end on that note. Thank you so much for coming on In Confidence. I'm so grateful for your friendship.
Thank you for having me. So fun.
What a fun and freeing conversation with Henna. I hope you're leaving this space stronger than when you entered it. I love that she reminds us that awkwardness isn't a flaw, it's a feeling, and feelings pass, and we can find ways to overcome those feelings. Especially, I love that she said the goal isn't to avoid awkward. In fact, we can't avoid it in our lives. It's to speed up your comeback rate, to recognize that crossing over that cringe chasm to get what you really want in life means you were brave enough to put yourself out there. And in fact, we're not playing not to lose, we're playing to win. And when we release that protective mechanism, that's where the real growth happens. This week's Micro Moment Challenge is all about trying something new. And if you do that, I promise you awkwardness is guaranteed. It's going to happen. You'll stumble, you'll overthink, You'll replay something you said or did at 2 a.m. and it'll keep you up because that's what our brains do. But this week, I want you to try to face that awkwardness, that embarrassment, that shame, and try something new. And when that awkward feeling shows up, as Henna has taught us, name it, claim it with humor, expect not to be great at it, but know that the comeback is coming. Give yourself some self-affirming talk. Like I always say, by the way, it's funny when I go to the gym, I always say, I have done hard things. I can do hard things. I am doing hard things. I will do hard things. Like I do that own self-talk for myself. And feel free enough to say, this is going to be awkward or that was awkward. Take a breath. And as Henna's taught us, that feeling's going to pass. Remember, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more we lean into the awkward, the more we're able to handle the harder moments that require us to be vulnerable, require us to do things differently, try something new in a rapidly changing environment. So this week, let's try something new together. I hope you loved this episode of In Confidence. If you loved it, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe so you never miss a moment of inspiration. And in the words of my 9-year-old self, I see you, I value you, and I believe in you. This is In Confidence.